Welcome, horror fam, to HHN 365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Mike, and I'm here with my co-host Duff.
I'm sorry to our English listeners on this fine day where they failed. But now we can talk about Horror Nights and make you guys happy, maybe.
Yeah, and our producer Nico.
Yeah, sorry to all of our English folk out there who saw quite a spectacular fall from grace. The first 2 minutes of that match was good, but the rest of it, yeah, wasn't the best showing.
As always, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at HHN365, and you can always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-3405. On today's show, we'll discuss the Haunting of Hill House announcement and some other release tidbits coming out of Orlando and Hollywood. All right. Well, this is actually future us for the next 5 minutes or so. This is recorded a day in the future from when we recorded most of this. Duff, what happened is what happens all the time is when we make a
yeah, every time we make release an episode or before. Actually, this time we were lucky because we get to edit it a little bit instead of just being like, well.
Never fails whenever we record something. Something like an announcement or a spec map or something big happens probably hours within when we release our episode. And sure enough, actually this time before we released the episode, you were hours away from releasing the episode. And what happened, Duff?
So kind of two things. The main one, Horror Night Nightmares did release Spec Map Volume 4 for Hollywood. That wouldn't always be something we feel the need to drop in right away. But a lot of what we talk about near the end of this episode is gonna change.
Yeah, we do a lot of Hollywood speculation.
I mean, I don't want to use the word confirm, but it kind of add some
weight,
more
a little
smoke
bit
to
more
the fire.
smoke and weight behind some of the things we were talking about.
The good old weighty smoke.
Exactly. I love that weighted smoke. So yeah, the spoiler alert. We're going to talk about it later, but we got to talk about it now too. We're going to be talking about how The Exorcist was seen by somebody on Twitter. They left the door open in Soundstage 29. And they saw the McNeil house from The Exorcist. The updated Horror Night Nightmare spec map does have The Exorcist. It also loses 2 properties that we actually also talk about. Maybe they won't be here, and maybe we're trusting that too much. And that's Beetlejuice and Halloween 3 are both now gone, replaced by The Exorcist and Halloween Kills. So a lot of what we're going to talk about later, I think we're going to leave it in the episode because I think the points pretty much still stand, and we share our thoughts on it. But now it's going from, hey, listen to this possibility to, well, it's actually on the spec map now. So that carries a lot more weight than just our opinion.
And I'll go out on the limb here saying that I don't think that Horror Night Nightmares would put this on the spec map just based on the eyewitness account that we talked about in the episode, or we're about to talk about in the episode. I think they must have other rumors and things making them lean towards Exorcist as well. So it just kind of puts some more weight behind the Exorcist rumor.
Exactly. And I don't want to go into any more detail about this map now, because I think probably on next week's episode, we're going to do more of a breakdown of this.
Right.
But real quick, just to tell you what's on there, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Walking Dead Attraction, Halloween Kills, The Exorcist, Haunting of Hill House, obviously, The Bride of Frankenstein Lives, Curse of Pandora's Box, and Terror Tram. They also added 5 unknown scare zones and the Jabberwockies as a show.
And one other thing before we go back to the normal timeline and we're in the no longer variants. What happened in Orlando?
So we got our first confirmation that wasn't actually confirmed by Universal. We're good for 1 or 2 a year where people see some stuff. This one being very easy. If you look over at the Men in Black tent, there is a beautiful "Welcome to Carrie" sign that says "Welcome to Scary" with the red S in front of Carrie. So hey, there's your confirmation
Yeah.
on what house that is. You can see it clearly from the walkway walking up towards Men in Black. It looks great. I love the style. It's like an old school like 50s like style sign. Looks good from what we can see. But there's your confirmation, and we'll see how much longer Universal waits to actually announce it at this
Cool.
point.
All right. Well, back to the normal episode. Let's hop right into it, Duff. What is this? Is mostly news on this show.
Yeah.
Let's just dive right into all the news.
Let's start with the big one. Why not? Let's get that out of the way, and then we'll move on to the smaller, interesting things. Not that this isn't interesting, because Haunting of Hill House has been announced, not just for Orlando this time,
Yeah.
but we got our first Hollywood announcement. So Hollywood is officially on the board now. They got their first announcement, and really the first full confirmation of the event. We knew it was coming, but it's nice to actually hear them fully announce it. So, congrats to everyone who's in Hollywood, or goes to Hollywood at least. So Haunting of Hill House, obviously we've known.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while.
long time.
It feels good to finally have it on the board, right? Like,
it's like basically since our podcast started, because this was like rumored immediately after 29 ended.
yeah.
So we've basically our entire podcast existence, we've been talking about Hill House coming to HHN 30. And here it is. It's official, now. So
We can,
one, that means Nico is going to have to start watching it finally.
I'm sure you're very excited.
Oh
Nika.
boy.
It's not as scary as you would think. It is mostly just kind of like almost like a family drama.
Well, the description of the house makes me more excited to actually watch the show. So at least I'll be good in that part.
I think you'll really
We'll
like
be watching it together,
honestly.
because I want to hear what you think as it's happening.
Yeah, maybe we'll have like a little report. We'll have a Hill House report, and Nico can almost like a book club, like a Hill House book club. On Netflix, we can every day we can just check in with our listeners who are rewatching, or watching the Hill House with us, and we'll have just like a little, 2-minute, 3-minute report.
Yeah, come listen to our Tumblr.
Yeah,
Listen to it. Anyway,
gather round
if you
the fireside chat.
How many episodes are in season 1 of this?
Putting me on the spot, bro.
8?
I think
9,
I believe
10? I think it's 10.
Is it 10?
I mean that I would have to start watching more than an episode a week. After like 2 episodes
Yes,
a
you
week. We could probably get it
you
through.
would. We could do that. No problem. Remember, you're gonna have more to watch though.
I know.
So it'll come. But if you have been listening to us talk about this again for our entire existence, me and Mike are both very excited about this property coming. I think at one point each of us has said it's our most hyped IP or
For sure.
potential IP
Yeah.
before. Whether that's still the case, I don't know how Mike feels, but we're excited about it, and I know that much. So the official announcement, even if it's not a surprise, is exciting.
Still definitely my most hyped. And also, just to clarify, it is 10 episodes.
10,
yes.
okay.
I just pulled it up.
But let's get into the actual announcement first. They dropped, we're pretty much audio files onto Twitter of voices, and not only did they do it on the Orlando account, but they did like a follow-up on the Hollywood account. And that's the one where you could hear Nell, who is a character from the show, Nico, screaming, and it was obviously her. And that's when everyone realized this was going to be Hill House, or a lot of people realized it would be Hill House. Then they did come out with a video, very similar to the Beetlejuice and Jack one. It had that same style, had the same warning screen to start, ended with the same HHN 30 logo. And then, kind of typical IP fashion, it was just kind of a mashup of scenes from the show.
And then we got like an official press release.
Yeah, we did.
And then a blog post. Right?
So what they say about the house, it's a main description. It stands like a brooding creature, waiting for its victims. Enter the decaying remains of an aging mansion that lives, even if all who dwell there are long dead. Step right into Netflix supernatural masterpiece, The Haunting of Hill House. Which, that sounds like Hill House, and I don't think it's the most, sometimes they come up with some descriptions that kind of hint some stuff and it makes it more exciting. This is just kind of what you'd expect from like a Hill House announcement, to be honest.
Yeah, very straightforward.
But however,
kind of a blurb.
Well, not in the description. They do give us a lot of info about what we will see in the house. Even like, how much they gave
I was
us.
shocked by this.
You don't always see this, although that seems to be the case this year. They're giving a lot of info. They're giving pictures from inside houses. It's different. It's a little different. So let's talk about that a bit. So first, they tell you some characters you'll see.
Yeah,
I think these are probably pretty obvious. The tall man, bent neck lady, ghost in the basement. You even get to visit the red room, which I also probably figured that would happen.
Yeah, like basically saying you're gonna get all your favorite ghosts and stuff from the show. It just kind of lays it out.
And then the blog post, a lot more detail. My favorite piece of that is it kind of breaks out what the story you can say would be, and that's that it doesn't really follow any character or any time frame, but it just makes Hill House the main character of the story you'll be seeing, which excites me a lot because that makes you feel like it's more that IP where they're taking almost an original approach towards it.
For sure, yeah. And we speculated if they would probably have to do this if they're going to do Hill House. You're going to have to kind of branch out from the movie, and you can't really do clip by like a clip show style house of this series. It wouldn't just necessarily work. You're going to have to make the house a character, and they basically came out and said, "Yep, that's what we're going to do."
And they answer a few more of our questions. I don't think either of us thought this, but there were a lot of people saying there's no way they don't somehow include Bly Manor. Well, in the blog post, they completely say it's solely focused on Hill House and not Bly Manor. So,
do they name
they
drop
don't. They say
Bly
it's
Manor? Like they straight up
solely
say,
focused on the first season of the Haunting series. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So clarify, but without mentioning.
Does that mean maybe they won't have
season
random Easter eggs of Bly Manor? I mean, that's a possibility, but it's not going to feature in any.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a room in there. It's not going to be characters or anything like that from Bly Manor.
Right. They're not doing a Stranger Things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Season 2, 3 mashup like last year.
Another thing we talked about this entire time we've been talking about it is they have to use all the hidden ghosts, right? That's like one of the most talked about things in Haunting of Hill House. Again, they confirm, you'll be seeing them. Right. Along with your favorites, you're going to get those hidden ghosts that make this show kind of what it is. A show that's worth not just watching, but rewatching to pick up everything you missed on the first time.
Easter egg.
And then, I mean,
probably.
It does even mention separately that there will be a lot of Easter eggs in this house. So there's going to be a lot to see, it sounds like, which, I mean, you and I both really love detailed sets. I think that's something that no matter how scary it is or any other factors in the house, for it to be a great house for us, the sets need to be impressive. And details are something that's going to get you there. So it sounds really promising.
I honestly think that might be my number one thing that makes me like a house is basically the sets and the special effects. If you have those two things,
I agree. For me, sets are number one.
Really,
the point I'm trying to make is if the sets aren't on point, there's nothing that can make up for it. Doesn't matter if it's Gary's house you've ever been in, or even if the special effects are great. But if the sets aren't to a level where they should be, it's just not going to be a great house, in my opinion. It has to have sets. And not only does it sound like that's going to be the case, but like we said earlier, they did show us some pictures, including the facade, which is Hill House, the actual manor itself. And wow. Wow.
Right? Nico, have you seen this?
Yeah, it's very impressive. That wasn't expecting to see something like that.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah. I'm really excited for it. Yeah, this whole announcement has made me excited for something that I've never seen or have any connection to. So I think they're doing their
Yeah.
jobs correctly. Then
Yeah. I mean, you haven't seen like a lot of the like I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of houses you saw with pretty elaborate indoor facades, but this one looks like it's probably going to blow most of anything you've seen away.
This definitely
It
calls
looks
back to
pretty
like
amazing.
poltergeist facade. Just kind of it's tough to
Yes.
fully tell the scale, obviously. The photo. But the scale reminds me of it. Kind of the whole encompassing lighting. And if they have any kind of effects, rain, wind, whatever it may be, it could be up there for like poltergeist level facade.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. This is gonna be, this is gonna be the front runner for indoor facade of the year when the Schmitties.
It
come
could be
back.
front runner for facade of the year. Forget indoor. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
we should mention this is going to be in the new Parade Warehouse, and you don't always get facades that look to this scale back there, or indoor at all, should I say? So yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, for those who don't know, the new Parade Warehouse, the most recent house was Universal Monsters. So to kind of give people an idea what
Decent
we're looking
space,
at.
but this looks. But when you walk in there, I feel like it's just one of those sets that's gonna make you feel small. You know, like it's gonna be almost intimidating just by its size.
I'm
Those are
excited for
my
that.
favorite. Yeah, I love those giant foreboding
And it-
facades.
Again, this is a picture. We could be a little bit off on the scale. It could be a more decent size rather than massive. To be seen. Just kind of how I'm picturing it. But some other pictures you have, none quite as impressive. The one that's being shared the most, I'd say, is the like Hill House, not crest, like logo, I guess you would say. Where
the
they have
Hill
Hill
House
crossed out
thing.
and or not crossed out,
Yeah.
but they wrote Hell in red spray paint over Hill House. And-
Yeah. This brings me
Yeah,
to
go for
something I wanted to talk about. They're definitely and knew they would, but especially with the video and they're leaning into kind of the horror elements very strong when it comes to this property. Kind of like singling out these little moments that were just kind of small in the movie, but they're leaning into them very heavily to make it feel like a different tone than what the
definitely. And I think that's something
TV show was.
that we brought up that's how it be, because you're talking about what a 5-minute house, right? People complain that this series is it's a little too slow. It's a slow burner, but you're talking about 10 hours of content where you only have to take 5 minutes worth and put in house. You know, it's not that hard to find the most effective parts and make a house out of it when you have that much content to pull from. So I've always thought those kind of reservations about how the house or the show is too slow and it takes too long to get into it, and there's just not enough horror. I always thought that was overblown, because there is clearly enough. I can name off the top of my head at least 6 scenes that would fit perfect for this house, which I'm sure we'll see basing off some of these pictures. Definitely.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
We do have the spiral staircase that leads up to the red room, looking beautiful there, and basically just a bunch of other like hallway type sets. You actually see the door to the red room.
Oh, so you actually get a picture of this staircase?
It's
like they show you that?
It's like a wide shot of the room
that
itself
picture, you're gonna
with
see that
the
kind of
spiral
foyer.
staircase in it.
Okay.
I was listening to Scream Queens. They did an instant reaction, and they made an observation that I thought you guys would enjoy, and that I feel is pretty accurate. It gives them, looking at these pictures, it gives off Tower of Terror Q vibes, and I feel that.
Okay. So
Yeah,
like
I
the
think just in
lobby?
general,
Like-
just kind of the the decay and the lighting, it does have a pretty similar feel.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the lobby is one of my favorite places of that building of Tower of Terror. So if it has that sort of feel,
But yeah, I mean, even but when you look in other rooms, I could even say like, yeah, I see Boiler Room in this too. So I like that comparison, Scream Queens. I like that.
Yeah, that's definitely an interest of this whole podcast. Maybe even the genesis of it. So.
Yeah, maybe we'll have an origin story.
I think we've said it at least 20 times.
Yeah.
But everything we just talked about kind of leads to another thing they directly said in that blog post, where it's gonna have this slow, creepy buildup that's gonna lead towards the more intense scares. With a quote that has me very excited. That is, just wait until you experience the final scene. So implying that it's this slow build where it culminates into the final scene, and it sounds like it's going to be crazy.
Do we want to get spoilery with the series, or should we just save that for Nico and not really talk about what they mean by that final scene and what that's going to look like?
Yeah. If you know the show, you know what they're talking about. If you don't know the show, we don't want to spoil it for you. Go ahead and watch it.
Oh.
But yeah, it's going to be very.
But that's pretty much all the info they gave us in the blog post, and I thought it was really cool to get some of the questions answered. I'm going to be honest. Personally, I could do without seeing photos of inside the house. There were like 6 of them. I don't need to see that much. Especially as amazing as it looks and how much I've been creaming myself over it. I wish I didn't see the facade yet.
Oh.
Imagine just walking in there and that's the first thing you see, not knowing it's coming. Sure.
So, Duff, I have a question. From recent memory, has there ever been a press release and then a follow-up blog that has basically answered so many of our questions that we had going into this basically from day zero? Like this is basically like a lot of the questions like, oh, what's the story gonna follow? Or is it only gonna be set in the house? Are they gonna have some of the scenes out in the streets, because a lot of the scary things happen outside of the house? Is it gonna be in the funeral parlor with like lots of different questions? They basically have answered a lot of our questions just straight from day one. We basically know what this house
the first 2 announcements did a similar thing, but it did not lay out what you're going to see so clearly. Like, this is basically it's giving you everything you could possibly know outside of revealing some of the effects and certain scenes. Everything you could know about this house. I don't know outside of hearing it from others if I've ever known so much info directly from Universal about a house.
Universal, I have to say, you're making it really hard to have a speculation podcast where we sit here and speculate about all these things, because we have like, weeks of content we need to talk about, and they come out with this announcement that answers all of our questions.
They released a 10-ish minute video about Puppet Theater where they actually walked through certain rooms of the house, and I know more about Hill House than I do Puppet Theater at this point.
Yes.
So if you need to know how much info they gave you in this blog post, first of all, go read it. Go look at the announcement. Go read the blog post. Unless you don't want to see photos, then absolutely do not go read the blog post, because you're going to see a lot of them. I kind of wish I didn't, but it happened too late. And just the nature of, co-hosting a HHN podcast, I feel like I can't not read the blog posts. So it is what it is. I accept that as a trade-off of having this fun podcast. I'll have to spoil myself sometimes.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's still a lot of really, really exciting surprises that we're going to get. But Again, not
no.
a ton that we can sit here and
Um,
try to,
Speaking of surprises, since
speculate
we're almost
about,
done with
but-
this, I did want to bring up there are new rumors being added to Shrek every day, and I love it. People think there's like 10 possibilities at this point, and it's great to just watch people go insane. Yeah.
Go out and
No,
look for
I'm not
those.
gonna.
We don't have the time.
Do
to
we have the
go
time?
over
Sure,
it.
but am I going to go through all of it? No,
But
I'm
yeah,
not. But yeah, forums,
no. Again,
Discord,
we try
you know,
not to.
wherever people talk about HHN, if you want to go see what they're talking about, Twitter, it's on Twitter too. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff floating around.
We've come a long way from our days when we had like a speculation part 1 and 2, where we talked about like 70 different things. Some of them weren't even like were like
to
so
be fair,
out there.
That was more like first of
remember
all, that was
that?
very early on, like way before Spec Map even thought about.
Yeah,
that was a fun
more
one. We
just for
didn't actually
fun,
expect
like,
many to hit. Some did. So, it wasn't the worst attempt ever.
yeah.
But yes, no, very different now. But anyways, a few more things about this announcement. One, it gave us Hollywood's dates as well. So that's going to be September 9th through October 31st, Halloween. So nice to have dates for that. So we can potentially start looking at maybe going out there. We'll see. Maybe. I probably will. Mainly because I want to also do Scary Farm. And since I'm out there, I'll of course hit HHN. So it'll happen, I think, for me, regardless of what the event ends up looking like.
Yeah, I wish I could make it out there, but I think we've mentioned on the show before, we have a very big trip that I need to start saving for. So I don't know if I have the time or money to make it out to Hollywood, but it makes me very sad that I think
We'll see. I'll hold out hope. Another piece of info about Hollywood is that so Hollywood's website, it showed only 4 spots for houses or mazes. Sorry, Hollywood folk. I just talk like Nico. Sorry, Hollywood people.
Sorry.
There's only 4 mazes. This was discussed. We know that you can actually see 5 mazes being worked on. One of those, however, we haven't talked about this yet. I think it happened right before last week's recording, and we just didn't squeeze it in. But they actually started taking some of the facade, not down, but clearing any evidence of Halloween 3 off of the facades that you can see, or the buildings you can see. So could lead you to believe that maybe
is strange.
Yeah.
being replaced or completely gone, which would bring it down to 4, right? However, Murdy confirmed that they will be using Soundstage 29, which brings it up to 5 anyways. So it sounds positive. He also said silly websites when someone brought it up to him, so it sounds like it's definitely not 4.
Yeah.
So
He basically shut
that's
it down.
good to hear.
He just said don't look into the
and this
website
part
yet.
is going to tie into something we're going to bring up after this. But Murdy also confirmed that Haunting of Hill House will be in a tent in Hollywood.
Okay. That'll be interesting to see how they pull that off. Are they going to have the same type of elaborate facade? Because it would be hard to pull that off in a tent.
I mean, I don't want to say can't.
No.
It's very unlikely that it will be.
Yeah.
But the reason that has some importance is a lot of people kind of thought that maybe this would go into Soundstage 29, just by the nature of what this house could and maybe should be, and what it will be in Orlando, obviously. Obviously, Murdy said that's not the case. Someone, actually, I have his Twitter here. It was on Twitter at Kevin_Castro22. Actually got a peek inside Soundstage 29 when Universal left the door wide open. And he saw the McNeil house from The Exorcism, he says. He thinks. He seemed pretty... He seemed pretty confident. And when people questioned him, he's yes, I know what I saw. Maybe because it was dark, maybe it was this. But he still sounds like I know I saw it, but I'll concede potentially I could be wrong on what it was.
Right. And he linked on his post. He linked an old
Yes.
picture of the Exorcist's facade from
He-
20.
Yes,
What,
he did that for
2016?
reference only though, which because he didn't get a picture. He stated he didn't get a picture. It's not like he was lying and saying that was his picture. So, but anyways, regardless, that is obviously leading people to talk about whether this is a possibility. I mean, yeah, with as crazy as Hollywood has been, I'd say a lot of things are up in the air potentially. I think right now we are too confident in the last spec map we saw for Hollywood, and that there's gonna be changes. Now, is it definitely The Exorcist? No, obviously it's not. I'm not saying he's lying. He could have just not seen correctly, but I am saying I think there could be changes coming to this spec map quite a bit, actually. We don't know. We don't know. So I think there are too many people who are shooting this down immediately because they don't want it, rather than thinking about what the actual possibility is.
Right. Right. Why do people not want the Exorcist over
It's
in
just a
Hollywood?
returning
Is it just
property
because
that
kind of been there, done that.
as far as from what I've seen, that it's just not like a favorite property out there. It wasn't the best executed house they've ever had. And I mean, what more can you do with that property? Like, you just are going through the bedroom over and over and over and over again, and there's not much else to do.
Was the Exorcist
Yes.
also over at Hollywood the year we had?
Correct.
Okay, so it is returning to them as well.
So people
Gotcha.
aren't excited if it's coming, and I think that's playing a huge role in why they are completely like dismissing the possibility. It's not because they don't actually think it's possible. It's because they don't want it so much. They just want to pretend that it's not possible, and they want to believe that yes, Beetlejuice is definitely coming, and Halloween 3 is definitely coming, and all these other properties that they were already looking forward to are definitely coming, and not something they don't want.
Yeah, I think people got really excited about the Halloween 3. I think that really scratched an itch for people, and now I think they just don't want to even think about the idea that potentially.
And I will say that
something else is
Soundstage
coming
29
instead.
having The Exorcist wouldn't affect Halloween 3. You know, the Silver Shamrock logo coming off the Waterworld Q building is not great looking, though. I'll say that much.
Yeah, we don't
No.
know what would be replacing that the particular location. If Halloween 3 is off
we
the
don't
table,
know.
which
I think
we don't
the
know.
point.
We just have saw that it is
Yes.
no longer
The simple point we're trying to make, though, is that this spec map wasn't fully set in stone, even for the bigger IPs. So there are other possibilities, and The Exorcist is one of them at this point, right? That's all. Yeah, maybe Beetlejuice shows up. Maybe Halloween 3 shows up. Maybe our inklings are wrong, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm just saying, keep your mind open to possibilities, whether you actually like that option or not.
Yeah. As of right now, the two sure things over there. Well, one sure thing, and then one probably sure thing is Hill House is coming, and then the Walking Dead attraction will probably be open and act as a house, right?
They'll count it as one, but we won't.
Didn't they announce that I mean, again, it was a different event, but they announced. They said oh, the Walking Dead attraction is gonna just be used for Halloween Horror Nights only.
What was that last
or something like that?
April, May? Yeah, it was a while ago where they're like, no, it'll be back for Horror Nights. Basically, it's like, oh, great.
Yeah. So if you've been missing that, it will
Come on, no one misses
be
that.
back for Horror Nights. I have yet to experience it, so honestly, I would absolutely go check it out if I had the time, just to say that I saw.
Let's see. So I think that's about all we have for Hollywood for now. I'm thinking we're gonna get some more info soon, obviously, just like we will about Orlando. So a lot more Hollywood news to come that we'll discuss. A lot more speculation we'll discuss. We gotta get Jonathan from Hotline back on a couple more times as this starts to pick up.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. We get enough of these announcements from coming from Hollywood, we can have our good friend Jonathan come back.
So bringing it back to Orlando, the biggest discussion right now is where are the multi-night tickets, frequent fear passes, rush of fear, whichever ones you want them now. I know I do. And honestly, the talk makes me a little stressed about it. Even if I feel pretty confident it's coming, the wait and the tension building makes me a little stressed.
Yeah, I get why people are worried. Usually by now we would have had information on frequent fear, but it's not unusual to announce tickets and then have about a 2 or 3 month gap between getting frequent fear announcements. We usually just get first initial tickets very early on in the season, and then we get frequent fear information.
Yeah.
In
and I mean, this is
like that, right?
still about a month later than like they would ever announce multi-night tickets, but this is a very different year. And there's also the assumption right now, honestly, they're just not doing it at the moment because they're trying to sell as many single night tickets as they can and make more money that way.
Do you think we're waiting on to see how much international travel will be there in September and October for them to make that decision? Like they're waiting because a lot of that is single night tickets.
I think so. I think they're probably just waiting for things to shake out in general. I think they want to kind of have an idea of what this is going to look like. I think they want to know how many hotel reservations they're going to have and how, like you said, international travel. They're just trying to hold off, I think, just so they have a bit more bigger picture before they make more announcements. They waited to announce a lot of things way later in the season than they ever have. And I think people are thinking into it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I still definitely trend towards we're going to get them. I'm not too worried. There's always that thing in the back of your mind saying, are they considering not doing them and being complete assholes? And honestly, it would be a terrible decision because of like, do you know how many people get like multi-night tickets? Rush of Fear and Frequent Fear specifically, and do you know how pissed off they'd be?
Yeah,
unless they plan on capping the event at a lower amount than they normally do, but I don't necessarily see them doing that. Yep. I think it's going to be business as usual, and I don't see if it is why they would not have Frequent Fear.
And I will say, corporations, Universal is one of them that has made some very mind-boggling decisions about operational things in the past. So I'm not saying I think it'll happen, but it just kind of leaves that possibility there for me. That's all I'm saying.
But Universal also understands the importance of the local and the annual pass holder, which basically Frequent Fear is an annual pass.
Pretty much.
To Horror Nights, basically.
Yeah.
And we see that Universal has pretty much upped their game, like Universal and SeaWorld has upped their game for that compared to others in Orlando, such as Disney.
They've like doubled down. Universal and SeaWorld, they focused during the pandemic instead of taking away annual passes. They catered to the locals.
Exactly, which makes me believe that they will bring Frequent Fear Pass back this year, just because of all the business decisions that have been made in the past, 18 months or so. Because of their focus on annual pass holders. So I don't think it's anything to worry about. It's just stressful because we don't know that at the time, and it's just the anxiety behind there. But
there were some amazing Florida resident annual pass discounts during in the middle of the pandemic. They were really pushing to try to get locals in using annual passes, and I don't think Halloween Horror Nights is
I don't expect it to. I'm just saying I think people have a warranted nervousness at the moment. That's all.
Exactly. I know SeaWorld will, if they don't offer that, SeaWorld's going to pounce on it and be like, oh, you can come to Hello Scream anytime you want,
if you're
baby.
Listening, that's exactly what's going to happen. I'll see you maybe 2 nights, and then I have to get a pass the SeaWorld.
Yeah, you're going to lose all your booze money.
Yeah, I can see it right now. It's going to be like, you can buy 1 ticket for $30, but for like $20 more, you can have every day.
Oh, they would
SeaWorld.
hop all over that.
It's you're gonna. Yeah, they're gonna push really hard about trying to get
Mhm.
people there to buy drinks and food and beverage and parking. They're gonna push really hard to go for people who do not have SeaWorld annual passes to
Yep.
try to get
And
their
then-
multi-night tickets.
And that's really
Yeah,
going to eat
it's-
into their
and-
market share.
They're gonna try.
Hopefully, it
They're
just
gonna
doesn't
try.
happen. How about that?
I don't think it's gonna be successful.
How about we get our frequent beer passes and go on and have a happy event?
All right. Anything else to cover on kind of those announcements that came out
I don't think so.
last week?
Not on my end, at least.
Well, we had actually a really great voicemail over the week from one of our listeners, Kyle. Nico, how about you cue that up? And when we're actually, it poses a great question. So we don't really put the voicemails at the end, but he asked us a really great question. So we're going to play it and then we're going to respond.
Hey, so this is Kyle from Most Excellent Adventures on YouTube, leaving a voicemail for all three of you, Mike, Duff, and Nico. So I've been listening to you guys for, I don't know, probably about 2 weeks now. Wanted to try out podcasts because I'm a YouTuber, usually listen to stuff on YouTube. But found you guys on Spotify. Now I'm listening to you on like Google Podcasts. You guys are great. But besides that, let's get to your question. Is having a Netflix property at HHN becoming a new trend? Because they just announced that Haunting of Hill House, which was on the speculation map, is going to be a house this year. It's confirmed. They announced it. There's already pictures of the facade. It looks awesome. And do you think it would interfere with Shudder type scare zones or houses, like promoting two kinds of streaming services at once? Like, do you think there would be any like kind of collision with, or like, I don't know how to really phrase the question, but if it's like promoting two streaming services, is that, okay to do? I mean, they have different horror houses, like different like IPs. They have Michael Myers and then Leatherface, maybe two different creator, writers, whatever. That'd be fine, but like, I wonder if it's the same for like streaming services, if they could do, Shudder and Netflix properties. If not, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think it'll happen for Shudder properties or not? Cool. Thank you guys. Keep up the good work. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much for listening, Kyle. First of all, so Duff, what do you think about his questions? Is it kind of a conflict of interest to kind of have Netflix featured as a house, and then getting that that rumored Shudder scare zone featured prominently in Hollywood, or getting a creep show house? And is one a conflict and is the other not? Like we just were thinking a creep show.
Before we go to
house.
that part,
What do you
he did have like one more small question to start. He kind of asked, "Is this becoming a trend?" Yeah, I think it's a trend. I think we don't know 100%, but it's kind of knowledge that Netflix had a 3-year contract. This being the 3rd year of that with Horror Nights. They very well could set up more contracts in the future. I think it's in the best interest for both companies.
Yeah, I think Netflix is realizing that this is a really a great way to advertise some of their series, and I think it's mutually beneficial to both. And I think, I don't know if the trend will continue, but
and I don't know Netflix will continue, but I would say this trend of working directly with streaming services will almost definitely continue, whether that's Netflix, Shudder, Crypt TV, whoever it may be. Yeah,
Peacock,
exactly.
Original series, things like that.
So I think it is a trend that will continue. As far as being a conflict of interest, I don't know. I feel like that's really tough for someone like Netflix to get in a contract. Like, okay, but you can't have another streaming service. That's pretty similar to like Warner Brothers being like, all right, but you can't work with another movie studio right now. It's like, oh, what? That's where the content is. And as we get further into the years, streaming services are where a bulk of our content is going to come from. So it's going to be really tough to say, well, you can only work with this one. I don't know if Universal would bite on that.
Yeah, I don't think Netflix would necessarily be happy to have like, a prominent, a Shudder Scare Zone like banner across Hollywood Boulevard, where people are marching in, and then like also there's a Haunting of Hill House. Like if you go a little bit further from that, I think there could be some confusion that they would not necessarily be too happy about. So I don't necessarily think that the Shudder Scare Zone that has been rumored would necessarily be something that I would personally think is happening, just based on having the Haunting of Hill House featured and Netflix featured prominently in the event. Now, do I think the Creep Show stuff, like just having a Creep Show house, I don't think that there's really would be any issue with that.
I get what you're saying, and I do kind of agree with it, but specifically this situation, we're talking about a headliner house and a scare zone, which gets, it's not going to get marketing barely at all compared to something that's going to be probably one on the arches, on shirts, on most of the marketing. So I don't really see how it would cause too much of an issue, unless we're saying like Shudder is directly in front of the entrance of Hill House, which would not be the case. So I don't know. I just don't see how it would be too much of an issue.
Also, I think Shudder is a bit of a niche streaming service from just basically what I've seen there. And really, Netflix is a much more broad one there. So I don't think they look at Shudder as competition, because Netflix pretty much knows like, oh, if you have a streaming service, most likely you will have Netflix. And
yeah, I dig that. Like, I don't necessarily see them threatened by Shudder, but I do think that it would be fairly strange to have Shudder featured in the Scare Zone at the same time Netflix, a prominent Netflix property, is also kind of on those arches.
I get it. I just don't see that. One, Universal would care. Obviously, they'd love to have whatever properties they want, or that even Netflix would really have the foresight to be like, well, can't have that streaming service involved in our event at all.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like Netflix saying like, take down your Peacock ads in park while you're while the event's going on.
The bigger deal for Netflix is
I think it's a little different.
Specific property, it's going to say Netflix like under the logo, but the house itself isn't promoting Netflix as a whole. It's promoting this single show, and I think that's the point, and that's going to come across whether there's a Shudder Scare Zone or not.
I mean, not to compliment large corporations any more than we already do on this podcast, it is cool that Netflix does continue to do stuff like this and allows their properties and stuff they have to not only be featured in interactive experiences like here at Halloween Horror Nights, and that the Stranger Things thing that they did in California a couple years ago, the stuff where they're giving out new Coke for Stranger Things, and now recently that video store. Have y'all seen that? For some series? Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool that Netflix is like doing that as promotion. I think they clearly see Halloween Horror Nights as one of those things. Like, this is promotion for the brand, and pretty much like, oh, this is something you can expect to see here. So make sure you keep paying us, $9 to $13 a month, depending on what your plan is with them.
Yeah, I think Netflix is very smart about having a viral marketing and having as many series as they can being viral in social media and talked about. I think that really helps them for what they're trying to do.
Anything else on that?
Thanks again for the nice words, Kyle.
Hopefully we're good enough for you to keep listening to.
So just to put a number on, how sure are you, or not sure, that you think the Shudder Scare Zone is actually a thing that's going to happen? I know it came up on his population map.
So from the way I talked, it probably sounds like I was defending it like it's definitely going to be here, but that's not the case at all. Are we talking like 1 to 10, 1 being not sure at all or not confident at all? Like a 3?
Yeah, I'm like a two. It just doesn't. I know we had a whole episode, and Shutter, if you are still the offers on the table, if you would like to be a partner, we have said your name of your niche streaming service probably like 40 times on the show already. So I guess
Yeah,
they don't really
they'd be
have
pretty
to pay
stupid
us.
to pay
We're going
us.
to still say it.
Yeah, yeah.
But we'll say
count
it
it.
50 times if um yeah, I just don't necessarily see it happening. We talked about the different the types of properties. There's not a ton to pull from that like it would be, in my opinion, it would be a little jarring to walk into a Shutter Scare Zone because most people would not
And
have any
you know,
clue
that's
what those
fine.
properties
It
were.
happens at Horror Nights, and I appreciate that. I could see something of the format, being successful. It's just not something I'm confident is happening this year. Shutter specifically.
Now, if we get a creep show house, I think that has a big enough name, and I could see that coming. And I could see Shutter, just the way Netflix is probably going to be, on the poster somewhere. I think
Oh, yeah.
Shutter will also probably be featured on the big, poster, and try to get creep show.
I'm sure Shutter would be up
On the
there for
arches.
sure. But yeah, no, I guess we are completely in line with that thinking. So we had a bit of a disagreement before. Happy to see we're on board again.
All right. Well, we are just about done. But before we started recording, I was trying to think of just kind of some fun, silly thing that I like to tack on the end of the show to kind of go off out in like a silly, jovial mood. It's something I like to do. And I'm sure we will have a lot of learning about Haunting of Hill House. But I wanted to do a little kind of throwback to the early days of Facebook and MySpace. And I wanted to give you guys a little character quiz and find out what Haunting of Hill House
Oh, God.
sibling are you guys. So I am going to, I found a BuzzFeed article from 2018 that has a little quiz. And I have two tabs open. So one for you, Duff, and one for you, Nico. And I'm going to ask you the question and read all your options. And there's about 5 or 6 questions we're going to go over. And at the end, we'll find out what siblings you are. And if I'm probably avoid any spoilery things in the blurb, but I'll read a little bit of the blurb if there is one.
Oh boy.
But let's get started. The first question is, pick a horror film for family movie night. The options are It Follows, The Babadook, A Quiet Place, The Shining, or The Sixth Sense. And I definitely can't confuse whose tab is whose, but
I
who
guess
wants
I'll
to
go
go
first.
first? Okay, so you are tab number 1 then.
So I'm
Go
going to base
ahead,
it off
Duff.
the fact it's a
Which
family
one
movie
are
night
you?
and say there's kids there. And I'm going to say the best option in that case is probably The Sixth Sense.
Okay. All right. I'm very literal in the family movie night, but that's okay. What about you, Nico? I bet you know maybe 2 of these, maybe 3. There's a few that you probably aren't aware
Yeah,
of.
I think A Quiet Place might be a little too unsettling for that. So I'm going to go with the other unsettling film, The Shining. That's what I would put on. That's what I would put on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most enjoyable. So
that movie terrified me as a child. I did watch that probably younger than I should have. All right. Well, moving on. You guys have to keep the same order now. If you could have a supernatural power, what would it be? The power to read other people's memories, the power to see the future, the power to make yourself invisible, the power to track and communicate with people from afar, or the power to stop all time.
I would like to be able to stop time.
All right. So Duff, you were stop all time, and
Ooh,
Nico.
yeah, I hate to like do the same answer as Duff, but yeah, stop all time. I really like the
Okay.
movie Clock Stoppers a lot, so I would
Oh,
the classic French Stewart vehicle Clock Stoppers. So
Um, pick a favorite Halloween candy. We got Kit Kat. We got Blow Pops. I know already know what you're gonna choose, Duff. We got Sour Patch Kids. We got Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Sour Patch Kid.
And we got Snickers. Yeah, we're on the same boat. Yeah. There. Duff and I, a little known fact, Duff and I are both Sour Patch
It's
Kid
amazing.
stands. Like, it's my favorite candy.
I'm gonna go with my favorite candy, which is Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good choice. That's and definitely
Especially if they're the
Mm.
pumpkins, because if it's the Halloween style.
Oh,
'cause you get
yeah.
the-
Yep.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah,
extra peanut
exactly.
butter in there. All right. What are you most afraid of? Not achieving your dreams, not having control, intimacy, not being taken seriously, and losing your loved ones. So before, just keep in mind you don't have to answer this necessarily seriously because it's a pretty intimate question.
Losing your
what do you
loved
guys
ones
think?
for me.
Probably
Alright.
like losing control.
Oh, look at Mr. Producer
Not
over
having
here.
control, yeah.
Scared to lose control.
Just scared to lose control.
We're getting to know each other on this episode. What would you do if someone told you they saw a ghost? You'd convince them to move far, far away. You'd question their mental health. You'd help them confront and banish the ghost. You'd use this as an opportunity to talk about a bigger concern you have about the person, or you'd believe they saw something very strange,
The
but not
last one.
necessarily a ghost.
I would go and try to help banish it. You know.
Okay, so you would just like get the holy water ready, and you would just be like
Yeah.
take it straight on.
I'll find a young
Yeah,
priest
that's
and an
probably
old
what I
priest
would.
to come with me, and
You'd put on your Ghostbuster
Exactly.
suit. You would just get to work. All right. That was you would help them
Amazing.
confront and banish the ghost. Okay. All right. And if you were a ghost, what would you do? Would you watch people, possess people, prank people, help people,
I'd prank
or
people.
warn people? Okay, so Duff is the prankster
and
ghost.
I would be the helper ghost.
And then you would be the helper
Yeah.
ghost. All right. This
Oh,
is
no.
very anticlimactic, but you
Oh,
are
come
both
on.
you're both Nelly.
That's
I guess
Yes.
I'll find out who that is.
how are my answers Nell?
Yeah. Yeah, you're both now. You are a hard person to read, but but that's your best quality, to be honest. You might feel misunderstood more times than not, but you don't let that stop you from sharing what's going on through your trusted friends and family members.
Wow, very very broad strokes, like that they're painting with a paint roller.
Nico's gonna now watch.
Yeah. Next week we're gonna do our
Yeah, Nico's
horoscopes.
now gonna watch Hill House and just be like, you know what? I am Nell. Oh, I love the character. I just don't
I
see how
really
my
like the
answers
character now.
lined up. But okay, do it. Do it quick. Yeah,
Should
just
I quickly do my own?
Yeah, just do it real
To
quick.
round
Let's see
it up?
what-
Okay. All right. So
fan-
It Follows
You've
is
let your
amazing.
kids watch
I love
It Follows.
I'm going to select that one. It's a
Oh,
family
okay.
movie night.
Gotcha.
I'm putting the kids to bed. And my wife hates
Okay,
horror movies,
gotcha.
so it'd really just be me. So family movie night would be me watching it by myself. If you could have a superpower, it would probably track and communicate people from afar. I like that. Sour Patch Kids, obviously. I'm afraid of losing your loved ones. Obviously, I love my family. If someone, I would probably do what Nico. I would confront and banish the ghost. I definitely would not believe they saw a ghost,
You'd put up a
but
facade.
I would
Oh,
at
geez.
least help them.
Yeah, there wasn't like an answer to be like, I believe you saw a ghost.
You're right.
Like, I think
I
Yeah.
liked the answer of I believe you
Um,
saw something.
And if I was a ghost, I would warn people. And I
If
think
you are now, this
would be
is
the
rigged.
warning ghosts.
Oh,
No, I
Uh,
am Luke. I am Luke. Yes, I have a major drug problem.
You know what?
By the way,
that's not too
Right.
far off. Just like personality.
yeah, just reading. You've got the biggest heart, and that means that you experience love and loss in ways others will never understand. It's a gift and a
That's
curse.
sweet.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this Horoscope podcast. If you'd like to join us next week, we will be talking about what Gossip Girl character.
So what's your
we,
rising moon?
Um,
Neither do I. I just see
I
it
don't
posted
know
on
what those
Twitter.
words mean.
rising moon is what
I
they
know,
say to you in the evening at Galaxy's Edge.
I know. Is it Mercury in retrograde right now? That's I don't know what those
No.
words mean, but I
Yeah.
hear people say them.
Apologies to
No
TC
offense to
and all
people
this.
who
Apologies.
are into that. That I just have no understanding.
No, we're not poking fun. We just have no understanding. We like to keep our tongue firmly in our cheek with everything we do, and it is not poking fun at anyone.
Listen,
who
I
believes,
barely believe I'm
in
real, let
horoscopes
alone
or
anything
those
else
types of
outside of
things.
this.
Well, I had fun this week, Duff.
Fun's a word.
Did you have fun?
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We one we got an announcement
good
about a house
segment.
we were excited for. And we got to talk about it. So I enjoyed that. And you came up with a very nice silly game. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Inside baseball, Duff had a lot of audio problems that we had to re-record a lot of this.
So
it was
F
a
in the chat
struggle
for
bus tonight.
Duff, who
Um,
is editing this, because he's not going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you next week. As always, leave us a voicemail if you would like. And HHN 365 at Twitter and Instagram. The voicemail is 407-906-3405. We'll see you next week. Hopefully, we have more announcements we can talk about because it's
real quick update.
Halloween
Yeah,
Horror
we
Nights
have
is what?
less than 8 weeks. They have about 7 weeks to reasonably get everything out, and we have 8 houses, 5 scare zones, 2 shows, and food, drink, and all that stuff still to be announced. So, a lot is going to be coming.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we will be here to talk about it and find out what characters in Texas Chainsaw Massacre we are coming up in the following weeks. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the streets.